I am a young man, still in my teenage years. In my family, I am the second child my parents had, but I am the oldest one living at home and the only child born to my parents who is still alive. Before I was born, my parents had a daughter, but sadly she passed away from SIDS, which stands for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. This was a very sad event that happened before I came into the world. After losing their first child, my parents still wanted to have more children, and then I was born. However, after my birth, my mom found out that it would be too risky for her to have any more children. This was hard for my parents because they really wanted a big family, especially my mom. She felt this desire even more strongly when I was about 7 years old. To fulfill their wish of having more children, my parents decided to become foster parents. This means they started taking care of children who didn't have families to look after them, with the hope of possibly adopting them. As time went on, they did adopt some of these children. Now I have 5 younger siblings, all under the age of 10. For my parents, these children have become their main focus. They make sure to be there for all the special moments in their lives, like school plays, talent shows, and any after-school activities they are involved in. However, this situation has made me feel a bit left out. My parents often miss important events in my life. For example, my dad doesn't come to the activities I am involved in, partly because these activities don't have big events like some others do. I only participate in activities that are free, since a lot of our family's money goes towards my siblings' extracurricular activities. Because of the financial choices my parents have made to support my siblings, I have had to give up some things. For instance, I no longer go on school field trips because there isn't enough money for everyone in our family to participate. I often have to be the one who gives up my spot. I've also had to skip celebrating my birthday with a party or gifts 3 times because my parents needed to use the money for my siblings' needs instead. This has made me feel like I'm not as important, and I struggle with the feeling that my parents are choosing my siblings over me. It's tough because I understand the situation, but it also hurts to feel left out and to have to give up things that are important to me. 3 months ago, I reached a point where I couldn't keep my feelings inside any longer. I was feeling really upset and confused about what exactly made me feel this way, but I knew I needed to talk to my parents about it. So I sat down with them and shared everything that was on my mind. I explained to them that I felt like they weren't paying much attention to me anymore and that this had been going on for several years. I was really honest and told them that there were times I felt really angry with them because of this. Sometimes I even wished we could go back to the time before they decided to adopt other children. I shared with them that I felt overlooked and left out since they added more children to our family. Having brothers and sisters didn't seem to make up for the feeling of being ignored. There were moments when I felt my life became much harder because of my siblings, but I knew it wasn't their fault. It was because of the decisions my parents made. I told them how much it hurt to be the only one whose birthday could be easily forgotten. And when I finally got a job and started buying things for myself, they seemed upset with me for not buying things for my siblings or sharing with them, even though they often got treats for my siblings and nothing for me. My parents listened to what I had to say. They promised me that they would change and that things like this wouldn't happen again. They even promised that I could go on an international trip with my school, which was a big deal because it cost a lot of money, $5,000. I was willing to contribute some of my own money towards it and they agreed to cover the rest and even started setting money aside for it. But then, something unexpected happened. My parents were asked if they could adopt the biological sister of one of my brothers. They told me about it and explained that they really wanted to do this. However, adopting her would mean that there wouldn't be enough money for my trip anymore. They said it was important to keep the siblings together and hoped I would understand and let them make it up to me later. I told them no because I didn't believe they would have the time or the money to make it up to me in the future. I had a really serious conversation with my parents. I told them that if they go ahead with their decision to adopt my brother's biological sister, it would clearly show that I'm not their main concern. Because of this, I wouldn't be able to support their decision and I would start to focus on building a life that doesn't include them as much. This conversation upset my parents a lot and my grandparents were also really angry about it. Afterward, my parents told me that they thought I was being unfair to them, to my brother, and to his biological sister. This made me wonder if I was in the wrong for feeling and acting this way. But then, someone shared a perspective with me that really made me think. They said that, despite everything that has happened, the way my parents are acting isn't a reflection of who I am as a person. It didn't matter if I was the most accomplished person or someone with unique challenges that amazed the world. The problem wasn't with me, it was with my parents. My parents haven't properly dealt with their feelings about not being able to have more biological children. They needed to take time to grieve and heal in a healthy way before considering other options like fostering or adopting. Instead of dealing with their emotions directly, they tried to cover up their feelings by adding more children to our family. The advice I got was to consider therapy when I can, to help me understand and cope with these complex feelings. I was even told that I deserved just as much love and attention as any other child, which was really comforting to hear. The point was made that my parents were so focused on compensating for the fact that my siblings were adopted that they ended up taking things away from me. It was almost as if they were punishing me for being their biological child. In their efforts to help others, they overlooked my needs, treating me as if I wasn't as deserving of their love and attention. This behavior suggests that my parents might be struggling with their own issues, trying to save others while neglecting the fact that their own child also needed their care and attention. Your parents might not feel the same satisfaction from helping you as they do from helping your siblings because it doesn't give them the same sense of being heroes. You mentioned that your grandparents are upset about the situation. This makes me wonder if they are willing to step in financially to support the adoption, allowing your parents to allocate funds for your trip. Regardless, you are not in the wrong here. It's important for you to pursue your trip and save your money for future plans, like going to college. Once you're able to, it might be worth considering distancing yourself from your parents if their neglect continues. In a different story, a woman who is 25 years old and my daughter is planning to get married to her fiancé soon. However, she has decided not to invite any of her family members to the wedding. This decision was surprising to me because she's planning a large wedding. I understood her choice to not invite her siblings since they don't have a strong relationship. What really caught me off guard was her decision to not invite me or my husband, her father. She has a specific request that her father walk her down the aisle, but then he must leave immediately after. When we asked for an explanation, she told us that her fiancé does not feel comfortable around us, and she prefers to prioritize his feelings. This was a bit shocking because I don't understand why her fiancé has negative feelings towards us. I would be open to discussing these feelings and resolving any issues if he were willing to communicate. My daughter has been in a relationship with him for 4 years, but we've only met him a few times. During the rare occasions we've interacted with him, he hardly engages in conversation with us. We try to initiate dialogue, but he either ignores us or provides inconsistent answers. For example, when we inquire about how he met our daughter, his story seems to change with each telling. Similarly, when we ask him personal questions, his responses are always varying, as if he's avoiding giving a straight answer. It's puzzling because it's not just a matter of him changing his mind. He outright denies providing different answers previously. After talking to our daughter about her fiancé's behavior, she suggested that the issue might be related to how we behave around people he's not familiar with. When she informed us about the wedding arrangements, specifically that we weren't invited but her father was only allowed to walk her down the aisle, I expressed that I thought the rule was both ridiculous and unfair to both of us. I also brought up concerns about how her fiancé might behave in the future, especially when it comes to potential children. My husband felt that I might have gone too far with my comments, suggesting that perhaps I shouldn't have said what I did. This has left me questioning if I was in the wrong. To add to the situation, it was mentioned that her fiancé was planning to cover the entire cost of the wedding from the beginning. My husband attempted to initiate a conversation to resolve these issues, but we haven't received a response yet. Given these circumstances, I'm left wondering if I'm being unreasonable. The feedback I received was quite clear. My husband should reconsider his participation in walking our daughter down the aisle if he's not welcome to stay for the wedding. This situation was described as showing signs of controlling behavior, which is concerning. It was suggested that we should communicate to our daughter that we'll always be there to support her, especially if her fiancé's behavior escalates into abuse. However, it was also advised that we should prepare ourselves to emotionally step back since our daughter has made her decision, and it's unlikely we'll be able to change her mind. The possibility was raised that her fiancé might be showing signs of emotional or mental abuse which could potentially worsen after the wedding. This is deeply troubling, and it was recommended that we try to have a frank conversation with our daughter about the risks of marrying someone who exhibits such controlling behavior. The concern is not only for her immediate happiness, but also for her future well-being. The conversation also touched on the awkwardness her fiancé might face in explaining why the bride's family is not present, highlighting the unusual nature of his demands and the potential impact on their relationship and social perceptions. It seems like there's a possibility that he might not tell the truth. It would be very interesting to find out how he plans to explain the situation where the dad walks his daughter down the aisle and then has to leave immediately. This scenario appears to be a way of removing any close support the bride might have, potentially leaving her feeling isolated. There's a sense that not everything about this situation is being shared openly. There might be additional details that haven't been disclosed. Perhaps the daughter has shared some negative aspects of her upbringing and her relationship with her family, with her fiancé, which could explain some of his actions. This situation gives me the impression that the story might not be completely reliable. It feels like the parents might be focusing only on the information that aligns with their perceptions, while disregarding anything that challenges their view. I get the feeling that the daughter has probably been very clear about her reasons, but her parents might not fully grasp her perspective. They seem to dismiss the possibility that there could be valid reasons behind her decisions. In another entirely different scenario, I, a 34-year-old man, have always dreamt of owning a mini car since I was young. Owning a mini has been a long-held dream of mine. However, my wife and I had our first child soon after we graduated from college, so buying a mini didn't seem like a practical choice at the time. Now we have 2 children. One is a tween, and the other is in elementary school. My wife has chosen to stay at home with the kids, but I've mentioned several times that she has the option to return to work if she wants, and we could arrange for child care. She prefers to stay at home, which is completely her choice. We've discussed the possibility of me getting the mini several times, but she has consistently opposed the idea, which is a valid perspective. We live comfortably, but my wife prefers to invest any extra money we have into our children's future, which I understand. Here's where the conflict arises. I'm about to turn 35, and I received a significant bonus from work for my performance. Usually, when I receive a bonus from work, we put it into our children's college savings. Our oldest child already has around $75,000 saved up for college, and I believe there's still plenty of time to add to our youngest child's fund. This time, I decided to use my bonus differently. I combined it with some extra money I had been saving on the side, money that wasn't part of our retirement, emergency, or rainy day funds. I placed this money into a high-yield savings account for the time being. I talked to our financial advisor about the best way to use this money. He suggested that instead of paying for the car in full with cash, it would be smarter financially to invest the cash and finance the car purchase. He pointed out that I could get a loan with a very low interest rate, which would be more beneficial in the long run. So I followed his advice and ended up buying a fully loaded 2024 gigawatts Mini Countryman. My wife was not happy when she found out. She was actually very upset. I understand that I probably should have discussed it with her before making the purchase. I knew beforehand that she would not agree to it, but I went ahead anyway. In our family, if there's something my wife or our children want or need, and it's within our means and reasonable, I try to make it happen. However, I expect them to show genuine interest and commitment before we invest in new activities or items for them. We are in a stable financial position financially, and I've always made decisions with the family's best interest in mind. This was one of the few times I decided to do something just for myself. When I explained my decision to my wife, including the financial planning and the advice from our financial advisor, she was still very upset. She raised concerns about the practicality of the car's size. Trying to lighten the mood, I mentioned that I chose the Countryman model because it's larger, but she didn't find that amusing. I reassured her that we still had our minivan for times when we needed more space. During the argument, I suggested to our oldest son to get his brother ready to go out. I honked the car couldn't be returned, so we might as well try to enjoy the evening. Unfortunately, she was still very upset about the situation. My wife was very upset with me to the point where she showed me her middle finger as a sign of her anger, so I decided to take the kids out for ice cream without her. I'm trying to understand why my wife might think I went too far. She's very angry with me now to the extent that she's not speaking to me at all. To add some context to the situation, there was a time when my wife bought a car without asking me first. It was a minivan, which is not exactly the kind of dream car anyone would get excited about. When I came home from work and saw the minivan parked in our driveway, all I did was acknowledge the new car. My wife explained that we needed a bigger car and that she had chosen this one because it was what she wanted. I asked her a few questions about how we were managing the finances for it, and that was about it. I accepted her decision because she felt it was necessary and we could afford it. Even though we already had a car that was relatively new and spacious, she believed we needed more space. I realize now that I should have discussed my decision to buy the Mini Countryman with her beforehand. When she started yelling about it, I tried to deflect the situation by suggesting to our oldest son that we should go out for ice cream. Looking back, I see that this might not have given her the respect she deserved to fully express her feelings. It might have seemed like I was trying to distract the kids and show off as the cool dad, which wasn't fair to her in that moment. Some people might think my actions were thoughtless, suggesting that I was ignoring my wife's feelings and trying to win over the kids by taking them out for ice cream during a tense moment. However, I believe life is too short to miss out on enjoying little moments, especially when there's tension at home. I've brought up the idea of buying my dream car multiple times in the past, but each time my wife was not in favor of it. This has been a point of contention between us. According to the original poster, his wife choosing to be a stay-at-home mom is entirely her own decision. He's made it clear to her that she doesn't have to stay at home and that if she wanted to, she could go back to work. Therefore, he believes that she shouldn't feel resentful towards him for making a decision that benefits himself, especially considering it's a decision she made for herself. He feels that they both deserve to have nice things in their life. The original poster is about to turn 35 and has worked very hard. He wonders why he shouldn't treat himself to something he wants. The argument continues by suggesting that since the wife is so focused on securing their children's future, she could consider working part-time now that their children are attending school. While it's important to discuss significant purchases together, the hope is that the wife's perspective isn't the only one that matters, especially when some people criticize the original poster for choosing to take his children out for ice cream during a disagreement. It's advised that these kinds of disagreements should be discussed privately, away from the children, to avoid unproductive arguments and potential harm to the children's well-being. Separately, a 47-year-old woman shares her experience with her stepdaughter, who is a teenager from her husband's previous marriage. The stepdaughter, being of mixed white American and Mexican American heritage, has been known to the stepmother since she was very young. It's important to note that the stepdaughter is very introverted and shy, not enjoying large crowds, loud music, or big parties. Despite this, the stepdaughter's grandmother began planning a quinceañera for her. The stepmother, having a good relationship with her stepdaughter's grandmother, agreed to help with the preparations when asked. I was quite taken aback when I learned about the quinceañera plans for my stepdaughter. When I asked her directly if she had agreed to have such a celebration, she confided in me that she had actually told her mom she didn't want one. Despite this, her mom decided to proceed with the party plans anyway. My stepdaughter felt so strongly against the party that she asked her dad and me to speak to her mom, hoping we could persuade her to cancel the event. Unfortunately, her mom was adamant about going ahead with the party. Time passed, and as the date for the quinceañera approached, my stepdaughter expressed her discomfort again. This time, she asked for my help to avoid the party altogether. Seeing how much she didn't want this celebration, I agreed to help her. Knowing that she loves nature and hiking, I suggested we go on a hiking trip instead of attending the party. We didn't inform her mom of this change in plans, despite having previously made it clear to her that my stepdaughter was not in favor of having the quinceañera. On the day of the quinceañera, while I was originally supposed to take my stepdaughter to her party, we went hiking instead, just as she wished. Later, I took her to a friend's house where she could enjoy a small birthday celebration with cake, which she preferred. We had a wonderful day together. As expected, her mom was upset when she discovered that her daughter had skipped the party, especially after planning such a large event with hundreds of guests, only for the guest of honor to be absent. My husband had gone to the quinceañera to help manage the situation when everyone realized the birthday girl wasn't going to attend. Throughout the day of the quinceañera, my stepdaughter's mom kept trying to call us, but we didn't answer any of her calls. My husband did his best to calm her down over the phone, but understandably, she was very upset. I was prepared for a difficult confrontation with her because I knew she would be angry about what happened. Later, when we were back at home, she came over to confront both me and my stepdaughter about the day's events. She was extremely angry and started yelling at all of us. Once she had finished her outburst, I firmly told her to leave our property and mentioned that this should be a lesson for her to listen to what her daughter actually wants. My stepdaughter, in a very polite manner, also asked her mom to leave. Her mom then got into her car and drove away, visibly upset and crying. The situation made it clear that there were misunderstandings and mistakes on all sides, except for my stepdaughter. It's obvious that the mom made a big mistake by not paying attention to her daughter's feelings about the party, especially since it was meant to celebrate her birthday. However, there's also an argument that we could have done a better job communicating with my stepdaughter's mom about the decision to skip the party. It wasn't fair to her to just take the birthday girl away without any prior notice, especially considering the effort, time, and money she invested into planning the quinceañera, which holds significant cultural importance. Some might argue that the mom had been warned multiple times about her daughter's reluctance to have the party, so the decision to proceed was ultimately on her. My husband was present at the quinceañera and was aware of the plan, so he was in a position to explain to the mom where her daughter was and why she wasn't attending the party. This suggests that while the situation was handled in a way that avoided the party, it could have been managed better in terms of communication and understanding everyone's feelings involved. You did nothing wrong in this situation. You and your husband showed good parenting by prioritizing what your stepdaughter wanted. The mom organized the party more for herself than for the actual birthday girl, seeking to fulfill her own desires rather than considering what her daughter wanted. When her plans didn't work out as she hoped, it was a result of her not listening to her daughter's wishes. This situation perfectly illustrates the saying, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." It's unfair for her to claim she wasn't warned about her daughter's feelings towards the party. I'm a 26-year-old woman who is part of a very close family, which includes my parents, 2 older brothers, and my younger sister, who is 23. My brothers have done well for themselves and have been able to financially support our family in various ways. However, my sister has struggled with managing her money wisely, which has led to some stress within the family. Not too long ago, my sister came to me for help, revealing that she had accumulated a lot of debt on her credit cards because she spent too much money. She asked me if I could lend her over $5,000 to help her pay off her debts. Unfortunately, I'm not in a financial position to lend her that amount of money. I have a regular job that pays enough for my living expenses, and I've been saving diligently to buy a house. If I were to lend her the money, it would set back my plans to purchase a home significantly. When I tried to explain my situation to her, she reacted negatively. She called me selfish and said I wasn't being a supportive sister. She reminded me of the times I had helped our brothers and questioned why I couldn't extend the same help to her. I believe in the importance of family and really wish I could support my sister in her time of need. Even though I understand the importance of supporting family members, I strongly believe in the necessity of being financially responsible and keeping my own finances secure. After explaining my decision not to lend the money, my sister has started to keep her distance from me. She has even brought our parents into the situation, who are now pressuring me to change my mind. They insist that family members should always support one another, no matter what the situation might be. This has left me wondering if I'm in the wrong for not agreeing to help my sister with her financial issues. However, I don't think I'm in the wrong here. The argument that we're family shouldn't be used as an excuse to overlook financial prudence. My brothers are doing well financially, so it raises the question, why hasn't my sister asked them for help? And why aren't our parents stepping in to assist her if they feel so strongly about family support? It seems quite clear that if I were to help her financially, I shouldn't expect to be repaid. I've suggested to both my sister and our parents that a better approach would be for her to tackle her credit card debt gradually by making regular payments. This could serve as a valuable lesson for her, to avoid overspending in the future. If my parents continue to pressure me into paying off my sister's debt, I might ask them whether they'd be willing to contribute towards my goal of buying a house since they believe so firmly in family support. I don't feel it's fair for me to compromise my financial goals because of my sister's mishandling of her finances. If our parents are so concerned, they could assist her in managing her debt. I've offered to support my sister in a more constructive way by helping her find a competent financial advisor and working with her to create a budget that allows her to pay off her debts effectively. This way, she can learn from her mistakes without relying on a financial bailout from family members.